So I reread the entire Sakurajima Colony chapters 190 to 198, more specifically the Maki Noritoshi Curse Naoya battle, and the conclusion of the colony battle was anticlimactic to say the least. Now, I know the fandom is torn about the chapter for several reasons, which I'll talk about later, but if we were to compare the Maki Noritoshi Naoya battle against the other 4 major battles that have taken place in the Culling game thus far, Yuji versus Higuruma, Megumi versus Reggie, Yuta's battle royale, and Kashimo versus Hikari, it's easy for me to see why most, myself included, would rank Maki's battle dead last. Yuji versus Higuruma introduced a new fan favorite character, Higuruma, and drove the point on why both combatants fought and believed for the justice they were pursuing, with some strong emotional resolve from the both of them. Megumi versus Reggie showcased the tenacity and technical prowess of 2 highly intellectuals in a battle of wits. Yuta's battle royale reinforced why the prodigy child Yuta is considered the second strongest sorcerer next to Satoru Gojo, with and without Rika by his side. And Kashimo versus Hikari's battle from beginning to end had tension, with no one predicting how it would conclude, as both combatants displayed impressive amounts of strength, and why Hikari is just as formidable, if not stronger, than Yuta. Now, that's just the bare surface of what those battles displayed narratively, but the point I'm trying to make is with each of those battles, they brought something new and fresh to the story. If we were to dissect the battle with Makima versus Naoya, the outcome of that battle is the same outcome most of us knew about Maki as a character. Her strength is impressive. I already knew that. You already knew that. Sure, she gained heightened Ultra Instincts awareness thanks to Sumo Guy teaching her, but the setup to the introduction of the Sakurajima Colony of her being a monster was apparent from the get-go, due in part of the Zenin massacre, which in narrative time was 48 hours prior to her entering the Culling game. What was interesting is how the beginning chapters of the Sakurajima Colony made a huge emphasis on Noritoshi Kamo as a character and the relevance his family clan had. The Gojo, Zenin, and Kamo are the big 3 houses in JJK, and diving into the relevancy of why Kenjaku made an effort to be the head of the Kamo clan was huge. So seeing Noritoshi Kamo's character fall from grace as the upcoming family head to his own mother abandoning him to instill the necessary resolve to prove something to himself to the point of sacrificing his life for the sake of his comrades to succeed was incredible characterization he desperately needed. My issues stem from how strangely coincidental things played out nicely for Maki after being on the brink of death, and Noritoshi quickly becoming an afterthought when Sumo and Katana Man arrived. Daido showcased that Maki was missing that secret sauce as a sorcerer, and Miyu, through the power of Deus Ex Machina, through his simple domain, taught Maki conveniently what she needed to learn, and get this, less than a minute outside the barrier. This is similar to the Bleach, Ichigo, Bankai training and 72-hour thing that I'm personally not a fan of. I'm just saying this Maki training came out of nowhere, and in tandem, it also deflated the momentum and buildup of Noritoshi's shinings. Although ironically enough, this chapter was frustrating to some people due to the following reasons. 1, Maki's strength is equal to Toji's. 2, anyone with a heavenly restriction are immune to domain expansions. And 3, Naoya being brought back to quickly die abruptly moments later is disappointing. Now, while I believe everyone is entitled to their own opinions for not liking chapter 198 or the overall Sakurajima Colony as a whole for these reasons, let's begin with point number 1. Maki is comparable to Toji's strength now. While the Maki versus Toji power skill debate have been going on relentlessly, the moment she acquired her heavenly restriction, the most obvious glaring point I need to say in part of this is that this is a shonen series. How many times have we seen the upcoming new generation surpass and excel the previous generation of teachers, disciples? You've seen it in Naruto, you've seen it in One Piece, and if Maki is comparable to Toji's strength now, eventually, according to any shonen narrative logic, Maki will surpass Toji by the end of the series, because that's how most shonen stories play out. I love Toji, and at some point, Maki will do something to finally cement the fact that she will surpass Toji eventually. If anything, I applaud Gege for giving us extraordinary female characters that don't cry like Sakura. Point number 2, anyone with a heavenly restriction are immune to domain expansions. My rebuttal to this is that anyone with a heavenly restriction are anomalies in this JJK universe, period, and Maki paid the price by not having cursed energy with the trade-off of being granted superhuman strength, and now keen awareness going forward. And we just learned in chapter 198 she can still be affected by domain expansion structured out like Megumi's incomplete domain, or even with Sukuna's domain expansion with how that works. So even if she may have an advantage for people with most domain expansions, I don't think Gege Akutami is going to place her an easy get out of jail free 3 situations with future adversaries. Sure, it was easy against Naoya, but that's poetic justice served because of his arrogant nature, which leads into point number 3. Naoya being brought back to quickly die abruptly moments later is disappointing. Look, I won't argue that a fan favorite character to be brought back only to be taken out several chapters later can seem lackluster for some. I think that's the point with his character. Naoya is desire personified to the extreme. He's hungry for power, a misogynistic, egotistical human being that really embodies the worst selfish traits of any individual. So the irony for me with his character is that we are purposely being robbed of his shining moment because he doesn't deserve it, and that frustrates his core character. As I said earlier, it's poetic justice. Just to reiterate, Makima versus Naoya isn't the worst battle, it's just the most disappointing Culling game battle so far to me. The Noritoshi characterization buildup had no payoff, although I'm sure we will get it down the road. The biggest annoyance is Maki getting the quote-unquote bleach power up, and even if Maki has changed or acquired heightened awareness, it still concludes with the notion that we already knew about her character prior to the battle, which is Maki is strong. Like no sh**. Is Maki versus Naoya the most disappointing Culling game battle so far to you? Let me know down below.